White-collar destruction leaves a wake of vanished pensions and suicides without ever leaving a drop of physical blood. Standard criminal investigations prioritize the collection of physical matter, blood-borne pathogens, clothing fibers, and fingerprints, secured through a strict chain of custody. Investigators work without a physical perimeter when the weapon is a corporate spreadsheet. In these cases, the evidence consists of numbers moved to hide billions in debt. This chart tracks the scale of the financial ruin, showing the $170 billion in restitution associated with the most devastating frauds. Traditional detective work fails against a spreadsheet because there is no bank vault to process. The crime occurs in the decision to misrepresent the figures, moving the investigation from the world of matter into the mind of the perpetrator. These perpetrators rarely start as criminals. Most began as trusted insiders, whose everyday ambition slowly twisted into a drive for financial annihilation. Bernie Madoff spent decades building his status. He was a former lifeguard who rose to become the chairman of NASDAQ, only to be unmasked as a master deceiver. His paper trail consisted of weaponized data. He manipulated mundane banking documents and false reports to project a multi-billion-dollar illusion. The mathematical layout of these records was meticulously calculated to project a steady return on investment that could bypass federal audits. Understanding these falsified ledgers requires looking past modern finance toward the older narratives of how power is projected through deception. Executing a multi-billion-dollar fraud requires the same techniques as a thriller. The perpetrator relies on pacing and suspense to keep the audience hooked on the lie. At the turn of the millennium, Enron appeared to be an indestructible energy giant, though the entire empire was functioning purely as a financial illusion. This corporate fiction was maintained by elite gatekeepers. Arthur Andersen, once one of the Big Five firms, became willfully blind participants in the fraud. While executives lived in an insulated reality, the collapse inflicted devastation on everyday workers, whose pensions were obliterated in a matter of days. The success of these frauds requires a public and regulatory system that chooses to validate a profitable fiction rather than confront the data. This tension between truth and the stories we prefer to believe is centered in the Yoruba concept of the moral placard. It is the social expectation that every individual will conform to an archetype of good character. The antithesis to this archetype is the Alasheju, the depersonalized individual. They break the moral code by pushing their ambition to a destructive extreme. Modern corporate criminals fit this mythic concept. They treat society's laws as constraints meant only for those without the power to ignore them. Enron's leadership demonstrated this deviation from the shared code, hiding billions in debt through accounting loopholes with zero ethical constraint. White-collar crime does more than liquidate bank accounts. It represents a remorseless shattering of the shared moral contract required to hold a civilization together. In the final stage of the myth, the hero who has broken the rules vanishes into the earth, rather than submit to the community's judgment. We see this parallel in modern courtrooms. Titans of industry often disappear from the legal arenas designed to hold them accountable. Kenneth Lay avoided the final judgment by dying of a heart attack just before he could receive a formal prison sentence. Bernie Madoff was removed from the world through a 150-year prison sentence, effectively buried alive in the federal system. They leave behind quiet, empty corporate spaces that have been stripped of their influence and their value. The physical removal of these figures from the public eye does not diminish their impact. It transitions them into a permanent part of the cultural history they helped rewrite. This initiates the resurrection effect, a phenomenon where the vanished criminal is kept alive through the culture's fascination with their misdeeds. Modern media cycles actively reconstruct their legacy. Docuseries and podcasts work to ensure these individuals remain present in our cultural conversation. This creates a difficult paradox. By obsessing over their crimes, we inadvertently elevate these thieves into dark icons of greed. This leaves an unresolved question. Did these corporate titans betray our moral code, or did they expose the fact that we value wealth over ethics? We have to consider if a culture that encourages ruthless ambition is responsible for creating the monsters that eventually destroy it. These criminals aren't anomalies who broke our rules. They are the exact vanishing heroes our culture demanded and deserves.